It was, I literally got chills when I heard the documentary interview with Jeff. I looked at my wife and I said to her, I said, what this makes me realize is one wrong answer would have cost me 16 years. That's what it was. One wrong answer would have cost me 16 years because they asked me all the same things they were asking him.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Crime and Entertainment. I got a very special guest here. I interviewed Jeffrey Deskovic about a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. He did about 17 years in prison, wrongfully convicted. Thankfully, he got out, became a lawyer. And there's a documentary that's come out about him. And this man was an intricate part of it, and I didn't even know his story. Please welcome to Crime and Entertainment, Freddie Claxton. Freddie, how are you?
Well, thank you, Wade.
I appreciate you coming up for the show, man. Well, you live in New York, right? You're born and raised here?
Yeah, born and raised in New York. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where'd you grow up? What part of town?
Grew up in Peekskill, basically where Jeff Deskovic, where Angela was murdered. Born and raised. That's sort of, they call it upstate. It's about 30 miles north of New York City.
Okay.
Yeah, now we live in Yonkers.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about this situation, how you were involved in this, because unfortunately there was a girl that was unalived. And, you know, the only story that I knew is the police kind of coerced and swindled Jeff into, you know, basically admitting to having something to do with this. But I didn't know that at first he was not the first suspect that was looked at. They were looking at you. Is that correct?
I was the first and primary. For me, it was scary because I was 15. Really, to be honest, I didn't know the scale of what was happening. So when it all happened, Angela went missing. You know, Peekskill had its, I guess, things that would happen time to time.
Right.
You'd have Fed raids in Peekskill. The normal crime that you would find in New York City, you'd find in Peekskill. But not as much.
Right.
So when Angela went missing, we all thought maybe she turned up or something. But when she didn't, the police started coming to the school and started sitting down and asking questions. Mm-hmm. The way that I came into the picture, from my understanding, is the way the police presented it to me is that I was writing her love letters. Mm-hmm. I've never written this girl a love letter in my life. We've never even had a conversation. So what they did was they came to the school and they tried to take me out of the school. So they brought me up to the principal's office. They called my mother. My family, let's just say my mother is aware. So when they asked, could they take me out of school, my mother said no.
Right. You
can't take my son anywhere until we're around, until I'm home. So what they did is they waited for me to walk home. So I walked home. My younger brother, 4 years younger than me, that would make him 11 at the time, was at the house. We were waiting there. Detectives showed up at the door, not regular police officers, and said, would you come down to the, you know, are your parents home? No. Will you come down to the police station? I was intimidated. I did go down for that. I was intimidated, but I'm also thinking, like, what's the worst that can happen? I didn't do anything wrong. Right. You know what I mean? So we got in there and went down to the police station. Next thing you know, we were in the police station. I was in the police station for about, I don't know, hours. And an interrogation. The interrogation was very similar to Jeff's, especially after hearing it in the documentary. And then it went further than that, all the way to almost like weeks and weeks upon, like showing up at my friend's house, talking to their mothers, trying to paint a picture of somebody who I wasn't. They showed up at my girlfriend's house, trying to convince my girlfriend and her mother that I was cheating on her with Angela. So.
And they're doing all this, and you're 15 years old.
Correct.
Wow.
Right. 15 years old. When I literally got chills when I heard the documentary interview with Jeff. I looked at my wife and I said to her, I said, what this makes me realize is one wrong answer would have cost me 16 years. That's what it was. One wrong answer would have cost me 16 years because they asked me all the same things they were asking him. But, I was basically, like they were asking him, well, why do you think they moved the body? And me, I'm like, why would you ask me that?
Yeah.
I'm not giving you my interpretation of a crime scene, It was really crazy for me, man. And then they said they insisted that I was writing her love letters. And I kept telling them, no, I'm not writing her love letters. I don't write her love letters. And they said, well, do you write love letters? Trying to, again, ease me into it. Yeah, sure, I write love letters. Then they said, well, we have a love letter from her to you. Oh, okay. Well, that means that it was never given to me. I never received it.
Right.
How could I, and if you have a letter from her to me, that has nothing to do with me giving her love letters.
Right. They don't have one from you to her. They have one
Right.
from her to you.
Right.
And they found this on her after her
That
unaliving.
That I don't know.
Okay.
For sure. I know they found that. They know of that. They have this note. They have a diary. I'm listed in her diary. So they started talking about that as if we had a.
So essentially, she probably had a crush, is what I'm picking up.
That's what it sounds like.
That she maybe didn't vocalize to you. Did y'all talk at all? Like, did y'all have any sort of relationship at all?
Not at all. So like I tell everybody, the most that me and her ever had was, in high school when you walk past a girl and you look backwards. You know what I'm saying? You look back and they look back. That's about it. But let me say this. I do want to say this to everybody because it's something that really... So in the courts, Angela was a quiet girl. Peekskill's not a big city. It's a very small city. It's the type of city that when something happens, if you're not part of the in, if you're in, you know what's happening. You know who's doing what with who, who's doing what where. Angela came in middle school from Columbia. She didn't speak any English. Mm-hmm. She learned English through school. She didn't have whole conversations. You didn't see her in the corner with the groups. At lunchtime, you didn't see her congregating, playing hacky sack or doing, you know what I mean? She completely quiet. She didn't go to parties. She didn't do at school functions, any of that. So I say that to say they painted this crazy picture of her, how she was promiscuous, and that's how, from my understanding, that's how they really dug in the court, saying that me and her was having a relationship. Jeff was jealous, this, that, and the third. Mind you, this is what I really believe should be illegal, in my opinion. My name was used throughout the court case by the prosecutor and for evidence, but I was never informed that my name was being used. Had I been informed that my name was being used, 2 huge reasons I would have showed up in court. 3. 1, to clear my name.
Right.
Because I don't have any DNA left anywhere. Or, 2, more or less, and excuse me, Jeff, but 2 for the parents of the deceased, because I could almost guarantee she still had her virtue, but they were painting this picture of this young girl that was their child, that she was, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Promiscuous.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear that, especially after the end.
So now her life has ended and her parents got to go through all of this. I would have gladly showed up in court to say, this isn't true about me. What I know about her, that's not true. And also, if that can't be true about me, what you're saying about Jeff can't be true either. He can't be getting jealous.
Yeah.
He can't get mad because there was never a relationship. We were never seen together. And I'm sure Jeff never saw her diary, so Jeff would have never, you know what I mean, pointed me out in that way, like had any knowledge of me in that sense. So I didn't find out until Jeff was released 16 years later, and the lawyers walked up to me and asked me if I wanted to sit down, and quite honestly, I didn't. I was a little reluctant because there were rumors out there that Jeff had pointed me out.
Okay. So
I've learned a lot through this journey too, with him coming out and a lot of things being revealed in the deposition. But I did sit down with them, and that's when they had my name highlighted, and I was like, this is insane. They're like, yeah, you didn't know your name was being used? I said, no. If I knew my name was being used, I'd have showed up at the court,
Right.
It was crazy. Yeah.
So when they're going to your girlfriend's house and they're showing all these things, are they saying they're going to arrest you? Like, what are they saying to you? Because they're badgering you. They're trying to pressure you, like you said earlier. You worded it good. They're trying to trick you into saying something where they can pin this on you.
Yeah, that I don't know, because I was the only time I was around when the police showed up. The only time I was around when the police showed up was at a friend's house. Mm-hmm. They showed up one night. We were all there in the living room playing whatever video game we were playing at that time, and his mother was there. I don't want to say their name. And when the police showed up, they asked all of them to step outside and me to remain, including Mom. So I'm, and these are all the guys I was playing basketball with that day, all of them. So that's what they were asking them. Apparently, were you playing basketball in this day? Was Mr. Claxton with you? Yada, yada, yada. As far as with my girlfriend, my girlfriend came to school. It's like, Freddie, what's going on? And I'm like, cell phones and stuff aren't out, so it's different too. You can't call me on a cell phone and text me and say, it's like I see her the next day in school. She's popping up in the morning. Freddie, what's going on? I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, police were at my house, and that's how that went down. And the police said this and the police said that you had relationships with this girl, with her,
yeah.
In front of Mom, who's super religious,
Yeah.
It was just all bad, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so they never did actually arrest you for it, though. They just pressed you?
They just pressed me. What saved me from what my mother tells me? My mother was at a meeting. Well, we just put it out there. My mother's amazing. She was at an AA meeting, right? And of all things, she's crying her eyes out. And the guy next to her, because she's bawling, was like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And she's like, my son, I don't know, And he said, well, tell me what's wrong. She tells him what's wrong. He happens to be a lawyer, and he tells her, your son is in serious danger. Go get a lawyer tomorrow. Because we weren't thinking about a lawyer. We're thinking the same thing, I didn't do nothing, so everything's all right. So she took me to a legal aid in White Plains the next day, who ended up being the same legal aid as Jeff Deskovic, if I'm not mistaken, which is a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Because how can you defend my name and his name at the same time? So when they're talking about I was having sexual relations with a girl, you can't refute that. You know what I mean? You got two cases in your hand at the same time and under the same, it doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, and that's how that went. Apparently that's how I was saved,
You've said this a couple of times, and, we've shared a story. I got a similar, event that happened in my life, and I think that's the first thing that people automatically say is like, well, I ain't got nothing to worry about. I didn't do it. But we both know that that's not the case. Even if you didn't do it, they can still jam you up. And I've got a lawyer coming in today to talk about this very thing. We're going to do a podcast after you and I wrap up. And it's so important that people think if they're innocent,
right,
that they can talk to the cops. Oh, I ain't got nothing to hide. You might not have nothing to hide, but bro, I'm telling you, it may look on the outside, it may look like you got something to hide if you get a lawyer, but trust me, it's protecting yourself.
That's
because
right.
the cops get tunnel vision. So say they did get that letter. They're because just like if y'all are grown, I know y'all were in high school, but if y'all are grown, you know, when a spouse gets, you know, unalived, or the husband or the wife or whatever, they immediately they look to whoever they're in a relationship with. That's always the first person they go to.
Exactly.
So they're thinking that y'all had something going on. So everybody's attention, boom, on you.
Yeah.
And that's how it starts.
Yeah. And I mean, it was, and not to mention, I mean, speaking of what you're saying, I just beat a 3-year felony warrant for burglary in California that happened in 2018. I haven't been to California. No, it happened in 2021. I haven't been to California since 2016. I had to pay a lawyer, and I drive trucks. And I pulled into a military base where they told me I have a felony warrant, and I was lucky it wasn't extradition wasn't available in California or something like that. So I had to drive around with my CDL, federally regulated CDL, for 3 years until California finally. And I mean, if I could even show you, I'm obviously not, but if I showed you the thread from the lawyer to their lawyers, the system just doesn't care that you're in limbo. They don't care that you're in trouble, you know. And like you said, they got tunnel vision. On paper, you're the one that did it. You know, you're the one they're going for, and that's it.
And because we talked about this as well, like, you know, that's how they get promoted. That's how they do good at their job. Where, like, you drive trucks.
Right.
You deliver loads on time. You're not late dropping people's stuff off.
Right.
You're there when you're supposed to be there. That's how you look good and you shine. How they shine by putting people away, and it don't matter if they're guilty or innocent or whatever the case. They don't care.
That's right.
And what happens is a lot of times when people can't afford a good, like, paid attorney, a good criminal defense attorney, you get a public defender, and then they want you to cut a plea deal.
Yeah.
And then you cut the plea deal. Now you're having to take time because if you're looking at 15 or 20 and they can guarantee you 10 or something like that, then maybe you get out a little early depending on the situation. I mean, people will take that if they got a chance of looking at 20.
Right.
And then you take that, you get out. Now you got a record. Now you can't get a job. So you do something to make some money. Now you go back in there. And it really puts a hurting on people, man, when that happens. And I put a lot of that blame on the law enforcement. We got to make sure we're promoting the right people in that job.
Yeah.
We need law enforcement, but we also need law enforcement to be competent and look at all the evidence, not just zero in.
Right. Well, you said something to me that was super interesting, Shine. It's like when I talk to my parents about the older days, you know, the Shine was the community officer that could drop the child off at the door, and they were on a first name basis with that was the type of Shine you would look, you know, the police officer that walked the beat that everybody knew, that picked up a basketball and shot with the kids for a little while. That was the type of Shine. I guess it's a different Shine they're looking for these days, and it's not good. But I just know, in my opinion, you know, I was just at that point, because I have 3 children, they're all grown, married 30 years. I was just at that point where I was like, cause you get kids, you want them to be able to trust the authorities.
Right.
You want that. Because if they're in trouble, you want them to be able to look and ask for help.
Yeah.
But if they don't trust them, so, you know, growing up, it was hard because I always had this chip on my shoulder and I had to teach my kids different. And I was just at this point where I was about to say, okay, I'm okay. You know, it's just, and that happened with the CDL thing, and I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. You know, you can be anywhere and anybody, and if the system got their finger on you and looking at you, you're the one. That's just what it is.
And it's nuts when that happens, and it does. It turns your whole perspective towards law enforcement sour. And I mean, I tell people, like, all right, if you go to a restaurant and you have a bad meal and you get sick, you're probably not going to go to a restaurant for a while, if ever again. You know, you take your car to a mechanic, you want an oil change, and next thing you know, you got a blown motor or something like that. You ain't never going to go back to that mechanic again. When you have a bad experience like that, you're never going to want to look at that business the same or deal with it. It's the same thing with the police. When you have a bad experience like that, I'm not saying all police are dirty, but it makes you not trust any one of them because you don't know.
Right.
There was a situation in my neighborhood where my son and his buddy got stopped. Cop was just riding by. I guess a kid's bike had got stolen. Well, my son was walking. The other kid was on a bike, and I guess it looked similar to the bike that was stolen.
Yeah.
But they was asking him, like, where'd you get that bike? And he's like, I got it at a Christmas present. He's like, who are you? And asked my son questions. So he called me up, and he's like, Dad, there's a cop down there asking us questions about a bike. I said, y'all don't say shit. I'll be there in a minute. Just like right down the street.
Right.
And I got there, and I'm like, look, you ain't asking him no questions. He's like, I'm just trying to find out about it. I said, I don't give a damn what you're trying to find out.
Right.
I said, you want to ask him questions? You go through a lawyer. And he looked at me like I was crazy. I said, last time I sat and talked with you guys, and y'all said y'all just wanted to ask me questions, I had to fight a case for 5 years before I got out.
There you go.
Said, so that's not how this is going down here.
Right, not with my son.
Yeah. And that's just how it is. When they finally kind of diverted the attention away from you and focused it in on Jeff, did you know they had kind of went away from you, or they just basically stop bugging you?
No, I didn't know at all. I was in a headspace, to be honest, where I was trying to be completely away from this.
Yeah.
In any way, like even the funeral, everybody went. Apparently, I didn't go to the funeral. I just, so even talk about it, thoughts about it, I was completely blocking it out. Next thing I knew, Jeff was arrested. Even when people were coming to me explaining that Jeff was emotional at the funeral, and even then I'm like, don't talk to me about that. I don't want to know anything. And that's my father. My father used to tell me, mind your business.
Yeah.
Mind your business and keep your head down. Mind your business. So that's what I was doing. I was minding my business and keeping my head down.
And did you know Jeff at all? I mean, did you two have a relationship? Or?
We didn't have a hangout relationship. We knew of each other. Like I said, it's a small town.
Right.
We've played basketball together in the parks. We sat on the JV basketball bench together. Things like that. We didn't hang out. We weren't buddies or, like that. But he knew my name. I knew his name. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that, that person that told your mom, like, look, this is pretty serious. Y'all need to get a lawyer. Did she go get a lawyer and prep for this?
Yeah, she went the next day and took me to the legal aid over there in White Plains.
Okay.
And I sat down with him, and he asked me a bunch of questions. And yeah, that was weird, too, thinking about it. He was asking me the same question as the police officer was asking Jeff. He asked me to draw a picture of the woods, the lawyer. Yeah, it's weird, man. Just thinking about it. I never thought about that till you just asked me. But yeah, he even asked me to draw a picture of this, like the seeing the woods and the path. And I'm like, it was all weird, especially at 15.
That's what I'm saying. It's like they zero in on kids. I mean, you look at like the Central Park 5 case and things like that. Like all those were younger kids when all this happened.
Right.
And you can impressionate especially police officers, and you're talking somebody, being unalived, and the consequences of that. You can, and people always say like, well, I never admit to something I didn't do. You might not knowingly do it, but as a kid at 15, you're scared to death, and they say, we know it was probably an accident, man. We just, say you did it, we'll get you on out of here. They're lying to you. And once you say, okay, well, I did, you're just trying to get out of there, that's it. Then you're done.
According to, apparently they were pausing play with Jeff, which is even worse.
Yeah.
Like, stop record. That's even worse. When you're editing the interview, that's totally insane. But, yeah, I guess you're right. People are impressionable. I'm glad, like I said, one wrong answer. It took 3 hours for my father to get back there to get me out of that police station. He was raising hell.
I bet he was.
You know what I mean? And I'm sure he was worried about raising hell because him and his family have history with the station. So they don't want to go in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it could easily just turn all the way bad. But yeah, it was terrifying more for my mother more than anybody else because I was just so young, man. And I felt invincible. When you're that young, you feel invincible, like nothing can happen to you.
Yeah.
So with that, and just not wanting to do it, not wanting to have anything to do with it, I just avoided it at all costs until I found out Jeff was arrested, and then 16 years later, it all came to a head.
When he got arrested, did you think he might have did it?
No, actually, I didn't think he did it at all. I didn't think he did it. I thought it was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think he did it. I couldn't even picture him doing it. But then again, I mean, in my older age, I don't really know,
Right.
but younger, even when they arrested him, a lot of people were like, nah, there's no way.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way. And then when they said that he admitted it, it changed the narrative for everybody a little.
Right.
It changed it completely.
And that's the thing, like, when people on the outside hear that somebody admitted it, they don't know the circumstances of why they admitted it. So, like, there's a big thing that a lot of times it gets brought up where Donald Trump took a full-page ad out on the Central Park 5 saying that I don't know if they need to be locked up or executed or whatever because of the jogger. He put that, and I'm not taking up for him. That was, that's a bad thing to do, but he put that up because he read that these kids admitted to doing it.
Right.
So he's under the impression that they admitted it, which I'm sure a lot of people, when they heard they admitted it, were like, well, I'm glad they got him off the street. But they don't understand the circumstances.
Right.
You don't understand how law enforcement works, especially the shady ones,
Right.
until you're involved in it. And that's what's so important about telling stories like yours and Jeff's and Andre's is wrongful convictions and wrongfully being charged. It's one of them things that people don't really talk about because they haven't experienced it.
Right.
But once they experienced it, now you're in the thick of it, and you got to worry about fighting that. And it's hard. There's got to be people like y'all that tell the story so people can be aware of it because it happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially seemingly in New York, man. It seems to
yeah.
happen a lot up here. I mean, a lot of cases up here in New York.
Yeah, it's bad. We do our best, man. We do our best. What was even more weird was the deposition. I felt like when we sat at the deposition, it's almost like they were still trying to stick to the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like how at the deposition, this guy is out and it's proven that he didn't do it. How can we have a deposition, but it seems like the lawyers for the police officers and stuff are still trying to, push it through. It was weird, man. It was so weird. My father hated it too. He's like, I gotta revisit this shit,
Where do you stand, like, with law enforcement now? Trust them, don't trust them?
I don't trust them, And like you said, I mean, my wife's family is NYPD. Mm-hmm. She's great, So I know that there's good police officers out there. I just don't trust them. I just don't trust them.
I think
it's unfortunate, man.
It is, because those are the people that seemingly you call for help when you're in trouble. You wouldn't like to think that they would try to jam you up for something you didn't do.
Yeah.
But where I think that line gets crossed though is, like you said, your beat cops that knows the neighborhood, that knows everybody, that plays basketball with the kids sometimes. Mm-hmm. When you cross over to detectives, they lose that relationship to the street, and they don't know this. So when they're looking at it as a case, and they're, like you said, they're focused their tunnel vision in on whoever they want, and they forget that these are people's lives on the line. Yeah. And even you got to look and think that had they not switched their focus to Jeff, that could have very well been you in there, and that comes with all sorts of baggage mentally and PTSD type stuff that you got to deal with also.
Absolutely, that's what I mean. It gave me the chills when I was listening to the line of questioning. I was like, because I felt like I was there. I went through that. One wrong answer, or even I don't know. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know, unsure, uncertainty. No. I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I don't know, that I am hard-headed. Yeah. When I was young and sort of had my chest out and felt a certain way, because had I been easily intimidated by them or deflated, it just, like you said, I could have been me 16 years, easily.
When did you get approached about your part of the story being in the documentary from you?
I'm not sure. I don't remember. I know it was after Discovery ID did it.
Okay.
Discovery ID did it. And when Gia or Jeff came and asked me if Gia could do it, one or the other, I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I was reluctant. And I'm sure Gia will tell you, I said, I don't know, because Discovery ID, they painted me in a whole different light that I wasn't even the characterization, like it was just totally off. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they did disregard what happened to me.
Yeah.
Because they were coming for me, you know what I mean? And they sort of just, I don't know, they just played it. So Gia said, no, it won't be anything like that. Mm-hmm. And it was unscripted, and I agreed.
Did you know Discovery was doing the show that they did?
Well, I was new to the whole show. I knew that they were interviewing me, and I didn't know that they were going to twist it. And
right.
Like, they even did characterizations. Like, they had me in a varsity leather jacket. I was never a varsity leather guy, like this blind football guy around a campfire in the woods, dude. I had people calling me from high school like, Choice, what's going on? That's all my friends call me Choice. I don't know, man. Yeah, it was bad.
And that's the thing when you run into sometimes with those bigger TV outfits, man, you don't really know how they're going to do it. You know, I had guys that tell me that they sit down and they'll talk for hours.
Yeah.
And they use 5 minutes.
That's what happened. They even put me in a polo of their own.
Yeah.
They said, here, wear this. Yeah. So I was reluctant when Gia came. Yeah. But they are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gia's great, man, and Jeff.
So I seen the documentary at CrimeCon that she did that was the short one, like the 16-minute one. Mm-hmm. And, you know, obviously I knew Jeff at that time. Mm-hmm. We had interviewed, and then I had interviewed a couple people that he had turned me on to. I had Andre Brown on.
Okay.
Had Oscar Michelin on. I actually had all 4 of them together. I was one of Andre's first interviews, I believe, when he got released.
Okay.
And Andre's a good dude, man, and I pray that his situation works out for him. I know they're trying to overturn his conviction, and Oscar and those guys are fighting hard for that, and I hope that has a good outcome. But that's why I said when I watched that documentary, you weren't a part of that first one. And so I didn't know anything about you. And then I was talking to Gia, and I was like, you know, is there anybody I can interview? And she told me your story and how you were a part of the second one. I was like, man, I didn't even realize that this was going on. And, I mean, it's more of a theme that I want to try to get out there of, you know, people need to be aware. If there's a situation, even if you have nothing to do with it, you could be a neighbor and something goes on at the house across the street. Mm-hmm. And you're going to get involved just because of the proximity. So you have to know how to handle questioning, how to talk to the police. Mm-hmm. And like in your case, they zeroed in on you because seemingly this girl might have had a little crush for you. Mm-hmm. She's writing in her diary, as people did back in those days. Mm-hmm. You know, you didn't have Instagram or Facebook. They wrote in diaries back in the day.
Right, right.
And obviously she's got a little something for you. Mm-hmm. And, you know, but you had no idea.
Yeah.
And so
she was found maybe 100, you know, she was in my mother's backyard, so to speak.
Right.
You know, so it was not so her backyard, but the woods behind our houses.
Right.
So that was another thing that also, you know, but yeah.
Now, do you have kids?
I do, 3. Beautiful, brilliant. Mm-hmm. When
you were bringing them up, did you, I don't know necessarily tell them about what happened to you, but did you school them to, you know, like I was telling mine earlier, be wary of the cops, don't answer questions and things like that. Did you present that to them?
Absolutely.
Did you tell them why?
Yeah, all the time. I'm one of them fathers who, especially my daughter. Mm-hmm. My daughter's the baby. I have 2 older, 28, 24, and 22. Okay. But I'm one of them fathers. I'm sort of overbearing. I'm going to give you all the logic behind what I'm telling you. So, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you had a message to send out to people, you know, that I think a lot of times people have the perception when they see it on the news, so-and-so arrested, and they think, well, good, I'm glad they got him. What's your message to people when you that have that sort of reaction? Because I'll admit I had that before I had my stint. When I would see that on the news, I automatically thought it was true. Well, they wouldn't arrest them if they didn't do anything. That was my thought process. I don't think like that now, but that was my thought process. What's your message to people?
Curb your enthusiasm. Don't be so quick to endorse either side.
Yeah.
Like, just, first of all, the media is only going to present what it presents. We're not going to get the full story. So I just say curb, like Donald Trump was that was a perfect example of that. His enthusiasm, his anger, his emotion about that situation, he spoke in that moment. and that's what it is. But if we just put a pause and we defer the moment for a little while, you know, we take some time to think for ourselves logically. Really, to me, I'm on a whole new walk. So really, for me, it's peace and love, man. If you could put that in your life, and you put that before every thought, you really can't go wrong, even towards the criminal. You know, even if they're guilty, you gotta show some compassion.
See, I tell people this story. When I got out of jail when I was arrested and I made bond and I got out, you know, I got all these things running through my head. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching TV, and I see that they arrested a 16-year-old kid for shooting the father.
Right.
And so I go on Facebook and I'm looking, and of course people are commenting and they're saying all these awful things. And this, that, and other. And I'm just like, y'all don't know what happened. And like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, if he did it, why did he do it? Was the father beating on him? Was the father beating the mother? Was he beating the sister? Was he molesting the sister?
Right.
You know, you don't know why he did it. He may have had a good reason, but people are so quick to jump and make assumptions without knowing all the facts. And sometimes that's hard even as a podcaster. Like, I don't like covering things when they first happen because so much stuff comes out later. So you have to kind of weigh that, because if you cover it later, then everybody else has already covered it, so then people might not watch it. Yeah. But you have to weigh this. When I'm covering something early, I have to go into it saying, look, we don't know all the details. This is what's alleged, and I love that word, alleged, because they were going to allege that a lot of stuff happened, but sometimes ain't none of that stuff happened. Right. You mentioned you had another brush later on when they were trying to pin a burglary, you said, on you? Yeah,
they tried to, I've never been to prison or county. I actually made it to county jail on the same thing, through a brush with them.
Right.
Like, literally, them trying, the officer telling me, I pulled up, I was on lunch, I pulled up into to get a piece of pizza at a pizzeria, Antonio's in Peekskill. They always pull up where everybody parks their car. I was going to be in and out. My music was a little loud. I went in to get the pizza. The officer was like, turn your music down. That's all he did. He didn't say hi. He didn't say, hey, how you doing, man? He said, turn your music down. So just the way he said it and everything, I was a little, you know. So because of my reaction and the way that I turned around, he didn't like that. He follows me out to the car. But now he's standing on my car and he wants me to open the door and get my paperwork. I tell him, look, you give me some room, because the last thing I want to do is open the door, brush against you, and this turns into something else. He's like, this is all the room you're getting. And that's when I told him, hey, well, how about we just go down to the station and you could just give me, like, or call the supervisor, or just give me a ticket for the music. Next thing you know, I was in handcuffs, locked in the car, in the back of the car. It is 96, like the summer day. Dude, it was so hot back there, and then he maced me back there.
Oh, man.
Dude, and for all the things that I could have, I went to the county for some music. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. But I shouldn't have been there for that either. All it was music. But what it was is they wanted to run through my car. They wanted to do a whole bunch of other things, and that's how that turned out. Then later down the road, what you brought up was I acquired a CDL about 10 years ago. I started driving flatbed across the country. I pull into a military base. They do a random check, comes back, and these guys know me because I've delivered there before. So, but that doesn't make any difference about the law, whether they know you or not. The reason I say that they know me, I was able to get other information out of them, because what they came back and said is, they said, you have a warrant for California. You can't come back on the base. Now, that's my money you're messing with. It's all types of things you're messing with now. Yeah. Plus my CDL. This is how I feed my family. Yeah. So, and I'm oblivious. I laugh because I'm like, I got a warrant. Because they know me. I think they're playing with me. They're not laughing. And one of the guys know me, and the guy that doesn't know me, he says, this is serious. You have a warrant in California, but there's no extradition. So we're going to let you deliver here today, and you can't come back here, right? So I leave, and I call California. Don't you know, everybody I called was telling me to come turn myself in. The sheriff over there, I called Jeff Deskovic for help.
Yeah.
I ended up reaching out to him like, yo, is there anything you could do? Or give me some advice. Like, so everybody over there. Then plus, because of COVID, certain stations shut down. So it was, I want to say hours upon hours and transfers and weeks of phone calls in different divisions from the Bar Association in California to the sheriffs to the local police, all of them except the Bar Association, but basically telling me, well, you could turn yourself in. And I'm like, there's no way that's happening. I'm not getting on a plane and going over to California to turn myself in for something I didn't do. I'm not even getting on a plane. Yeah. So that's when I called, my brother lives in California, called him. They plugged me in with a lawyer. I forgot his name. Anyway, Grace Law Firm. And he got me what other lawyers were offering to do for $25,000, $30,000. He did it for like $5,000. But it took 3 years, man. 3 years, and I'm riding around every time I went through an inspection, every time I went through a weigh station with the truck, all I could do was just, you know. Meanwhile, I never did nothing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, my wife crying. She's like, I just got you back. I don't want to. Like, meaning I got it to a point where I don't have to worry about you anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now there's a felony warrant hanging over your head for burglary. And then I asked them how. They said, facial recognition. I said, how? I gave them all the proof that I haven't been there, that I wasn't there. I hadn't even been there since 2016. They said that I was picked out of a lineup, and it even had a co-defendant. I said, ask the co-defendant if I was there with him. I looked up the co-defendant's name. You know that how you can look people up on Google? I found out he got a lot of priors. You could tell he's running, jiggling on corners and stuff, but I'm like, yo, it's crazy.
And see, that's another way too. Like, and I'm not saying that he did this, but I mean, like, when you got somebody like that, they'll pick anybody out of a book if they think they're gonna shave some time on. They'll give up anybody. Some gonna give up their own mama.
Oh, like, it was crazy, man. It was my California license. They're like, is this your picture? Is this your California license? I'm like, yeah. I was like, was it dropped? Now, oddly enough, and I mean, it's not far off track, but I traveled from California to New York on a motorcycle, on a Suzuki SV650 by myself, from LA all the way to New York. I dropped my wallet with everything in Illinois. Oh. Everything. But that was years ago. But I dropped it in Illinois. You know, so when that came up with California, that's the only thing that could come to mind. I was like, California license. It's so weird. And then the whole facial recognition is only supposed to be 80% correct. So this is what I have on that is, how can the courts use something like facial recognition when there has to be without reasonable doubt, right? Mm-hmm. There can't be any doubt for there to be conviction. So if there's 20% of doubt, you can't use facial recognition.
Yeah. And they try to do so much stuff. Like, even like lie detector tests. Like, lie detector tests aren't admissible in court.
Right.
You can't use them in court, but they'll ask you to take them because if you fail it, it's going to look bad. And they try to pressure you, well, if you don't take it, it's going to look bad. I would never take a lie detector test.
Right.
Even if I didn't do it.
Right.
Because you're nervous or whatever, if the machine messes it, because you're going to be nervous as hell anyway.
Right.
And I would never take it because it's not going to benefit you. If you pass it with flying colors, they're not going to say, if you go to court, hey, he passed it, you know, whatever. It's not even going to be heard. Mm-hmm. So it's not a good idea to take that. And these are just little things that people need to just take from your story, from Jeff's story, from Andre's story, and just kind of have them in the back of their mind, because you never know when it's going to be you in that situation. You never know when it can help you out or somebody that you know, because like we said, these conversations here today, you got picked up for something you ain't even been in the area and somehow that happened to you. So that lets you know you ain't even necessarily got to be close to the situation. you can be states away. You can't get no further away than
California,
LA,
New York.
Yeah.
Right. You can't, exactly.
Unless you're in the water somewhere.
Right. Exactly, man. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you could come by the studio today, brother. I'm glad that you were able to share this story. Is there anything that you have going on that you want to plug or talk about as far as foundations or, anything that you have you want to plug?
No, not really. No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, very humbled. I'm glad you invited me, man.
Well,
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to have you on. I think stories like yours are important. And, unfortunately, Jeff did have to go away and do some time. That could have very well been you. I hated it happened to either of you. But, you all things considered, you do have a good disposition about yourself. You are blessed because it could have been worse.
Yeah.
But I think you also are aware that it made you aware how the system operates.
Absolutely.
So, all I ask, man, just continue to share your message with people, especially young people that think that this kind of stuff can't happen. I got a daughter that was always like, well, the cops wouldn't arrest you if you didn't do anything. I'm like, bullshit.
Yep.
You better think again. So just keep the youngsters aware, man, that this kind of stuff can happen.
Will do. Man, thank you. Keep doing what you do. Pardon me, I had shoulder surgery.
No, you're good, buddy. Appreciate you stopping
All
by.
right, thanks, Wade, man.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was it for this episode of Crime and Entertainment. I'll see you next week.